This is crazy. I can't believe we're actually doing this. I don't even know how to start, honestly. Hi, this is NotStraightKait, and welcome to Edugaytion 101. Just kidding. What do I even say? How long are we going to be doing this for? I don't want to take too long, but it's got to be a good podcast, you know? Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to our first ever episode of Edugaytion 101. I am your host, Kate, or NotStraightKait, or Baby Gay, however you first learned about me. I'm assuming it's from TikTok. I've been wondering how I should even start these episodes, honestly. We're going to refine that process a little bit. This is technically the first episode of the podcast. I've already recorded a couple of other episodes with some really awesome people, but this is the first one that's kind of like an introduction to what Edugaytion 101 is going to be about, which I've been thinking a lot about just in the last few weeks. I've really wanted to do a podcast for a really long time. I don't know what I find so appealing about it. I enjoy telling stories, and I think that's kind of where it starts. Is I am a storyteller. I like to share experiences. I like to hear other people's experiences, ultimately because I think that's how we learn. It's hard to feel negative emotions towards somebody when you know their story. I think even if it's not a person that you particularly are fond of, it's hard to be upset or angry or hateful towards a person when you know what their experience has been. So I think that's why the appeal of the podcast is storytelling for me. And I think ultimately that's what Edugaytion 101 is going to be about. The goal ultimately of this podcast is to reach people who are either still in the closet or are struggling coming out or don't have a whole lot of support coming out, or maybe you've been out for a long time and you just need to feel like you belong to something. I know that the hardest part for me, one of the really difficult parts for me coming out, was feeling really alone. I didn't think that anybody else was experiencing what I was experiencing. I thought that I was the only person dealing with, for me personally, it was this conflict between my faith and my feelings, dealing with disappointment from family. That was really difficult. That's something that I'm still trying to work through, I think. But the podcast is, I hope, going to reach people who feel or felt the same way that I did when I was coming out, which was very, very fearful and alone. It was a scary time. It was not so much because of what was going on outside of me. It wasn't any external conflict that was really difficult. It was all of the thoughts and the emotions that I felt as I was coming out to myself, coming out to friends, which I think anybody who has come out knows that kind of happens in layers. But Edugaytion 101, we're going to delve into my personal coming out story, other people's experiences as queer women in Utah. Maybe I've interviewed a number of other people at this point already that have podcast episodes ready to go. So stay tuned for those. I've got a lot of people that that come from very different walks of life. And like I said, I enjoy hearing their stories. So it's not just, there's going to be some podcast episodes that are me doing most of the talking, but I hope to bring people on who have different experiences than mine, that we can all kind of navigate this together. If you are listening to the podcast, like I said earlier, you probably found me on TikTok or on Instagram. The TikTok thing, I started that about a year ago, and honestly, I did not anticipate it turning into what it has turned into. I got on there because my ex at the time, who I was still living with, she told me that I would, quote, slay gay TikTok, close quote, is what she said. And I was like, no way. Like, no way. What? Me? Little old me? I don't think so. But then I brought that up to my therapist at the time, and she was like, you should get on TikTok. There's a really large LGBTQ presence on TikTok, and maybe you can learn something. Because there's not really much of an LGBTQ presence in Utah specifically. And so I got on TikTok. And I do not think that my therapist meant for me to start posting videos. I don't think she saw that coming, but then I did. And the views started just going up and the engagement and the follows. And I was like, I remember it was like a week later, my next session, I was like, you're never going to believe what's happening on TikTok. And then we just talked about TikTok for who knows how long. But if you are coming here from TikTok, you know that the word edugaytion, it's something that slipped out during one of my earlier videos. It sounded funny, a little play on words, a little education for the gays. I don't know. But I said it in one of my videos and it just kind of stuck after that. And so it kind of turned into like a little series on TikTok of talking about different labels and experiences as a baby gay coming out. You come out, and if you're like me, coming from a more conservative, red, rural state where there's not a large LGBTQ presence, coming out as a whole, I mean, you step into this community or try and skirt your way around the edges of said community to kind of see what's going on, because there is so much happening within the LGBTQ community in terms of terminology and labels and identifiers. There's so much to learn. And the tricky part too, as I have experienced, is that sometimes if you say the wrong labels, you really make some people pretty upset. And I've seen it, I've experienced it firsthand, but I've also seen other people who will say a word and then other people tell them that's not, that word isn't for them. That's not how you use it. That's not what that means. And so it's this big confusing mess of what should you call yourself? Does it matter? Does it not? I don't know. So that's what the education videos essentially were about, was terminologies and trying to understand and learn a little bit more about the community as somebody who knew practically nothing going into it. But the idea there was to tackle some difficult topics or experiences. Coming out is a hard thing sometimes. The idea was to make those experiences maybe a little more humorous. I know personally that if I don't laugh about something that's hard, I will cry. And I think I would rather be laughing my way through the hard times, not like a maniacal, crazy person kind of laugh. But you understand what I'm saying. I think there's a lot of humor to be found in life in general. And I planned on and hope that my education videos have been that. I have a lot of people that have messaged me about, thanks for the smiles, thanks for the laughs and the humor, and treating this not lightly, but in a way that makes it easier to laugh about something that's really difficult. That's how I get through hard times. I try and find the humor in it. Everybody needs to laugh a little bit more, I think. So that was the purpose of the TikTok education series. The podcast, on the other hand, I'm hoping to be able to dive a little bit deeper into some of those ideas, terms, identifiers, labels, issues that crop up within the community on TikTok specifically. I think there's a lot of negativity on gay, queer, lesbian TikTok. A lot of people getting mad at each other, a lot of drama, it seems like. And I don't like that side of it. And I just don't know why things like that are happening. So probably talk a lot about some of the drama, analyze it. I don't know. We're going to have a good time. That's what I'm saying. But this first episode, though, I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about my experience, so that you know kind of where I'm coming from, why I am the way that I am, perhaps, and just give you a little bit of a background into what it is that I've been through. I don't claim to be qualified to teach anybody anything. I'm not a professional at anything. I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I do a little bit of everything. There's a lot of things that I really enjoy. So I'm not proficient in a lot, but I've been a gay now for quite some time. Not as long as other gays have been gay, but long enough to at least share my experiences in hopes that maybe some of those experiences will resonate with you. And maybe, you learn something from my experience or from the experiences of people that I'll have on the podcast. But I'll tell you a little bit about my background, where I'm coming from. And there's a lot of things that we will talk about moving forward. So I came out in 2019 for the first time. That wasn't the first time that I thought that maybe I could be gay, though. But it was when that was when I first had my first woman-loving woman relationship, first girlfriend. First time I actually acknowledged that, okay, there's this part of me that I've been told is not normal, but it's how I feel, and it doesn't feel wrong. And that was a big issue. But so it's 2019, which now at the time of recording of this podcast, that was about 3 years ago. Excuse me. That's when I came out. My first relationship ended 2021. No, 2020, end of 2020. And it wasn't until the end of that relationship that I finally felt like I was comfortable with my sexuality. That's about the same time that I started TikTok, was after that first relationship. But let me back up here. I am from Utah, born and raised, good old Utah. If you know anything about Utah, you probably know about Mormons and Mormons. That's probably all that you've heard about Utah. Mormonism, or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is the predominant religion here in Utah. It's kind of what we're associated with. I consider myself still to be a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's a whole mouthful. Say it 10 times fast. Grew up going to church every Sunday with my parents, with my brothers and sisters, went to youth groups, went to seminary in high school. Seminary is a early morning seminary too, mind you, not just like it was a class during the day that I went to. I went to seminary at like 6 o'clock, 6:30, I think is when it started. And you'd go and we'd have religious instruction and we'd talk about scriptures and God and all sorts of different things. But I did that all through high school, graduated, ended up going to college. I was at the University of Utah for a couple years. And while I was there, I was attending church at a specific congregation for young single adults. The idea of the young single adult ward is so that you can meet another young single adult so that you can stop being single. There's this culture within the church. And when I say the church, I mean the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Okay, very specific. I'm not just talking all churches. There's a culture within the church that really pushes for young people to get married very quickly, and to have kids very quickly. And I think that's kind of diminishing a little bit, but that was what I was dealing with predominantly when I was in college was gotta get married. Who are you dating? Gotta get married. So I attended that ward, dated one guy, and then I ended up serving a religious mission for my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was a little sister missionary. We had these little plaques that we would wear around with our name. I served in Argentina, which I still, to this day, I tell people that was the absolute best experience of my life. I would not trade serving a mission for anything in the world. I loved it. I loved the people that I met. I loved the culture. I loved talking about God. In fact, I went to church my entire life, and I felt like I had a pretty good handle on religion and things like that, or at least like the specifics of religion. But it wasn't until my mission that I felt actually like very spiritual. Like I really had a connection with God and with Jesus Christ. And that really, that was a very life-changing experience, was trying to understand my relationship with God and how that affected my relationship with other people as well. So life-changing experience out on the mission. Didn't think at all about being gay or anything. It was actually in high school, the first time that I even had a fleeting thought that maybe I like women, but that's what it was. It was that fast. It was blink of an eye. I had the thought was gone, and I did not entertain that again at all. And I wasn't going to. It's something that I just absolutely swept under the rug. Like my little gay self poked its head out of the closet like way too early. And I was like, nope, get back in there. But this is not the right time. This is not the right time. And I do think that things happen when they're supposed to happen. And I know that now, if I would have thought more about being gay and my sexuality, if I would have thought more about that back when I was in high school, it would have ruined me if I would have come out at that time. It would have destroyed me, because I still didn't even know who I was. As a senior graduating high school, there was so much that I hadn't experienced and hadn't learned about. And that would have absolutely wrecked me. And I only know that because it almost wrecked me at 25, when I felt like I did have a handle on my life and I knew what I was doing and I knew what direction I was going in. And then all of a sudden, I was dating a woman and trying to navigate that, and having come from a very religious background, it was shocking to me. Earth-shattering would be how I would describe it. Like I just, for a year and a half while I dated my first girlfriend, granted, she was fabulous, mind you. I don't think there was a better person that I could have been dating as I was also coming out, because she didn't pressure me into anything. She didn't pressure me to come out to anybody. She was very, very, very considerate of where I was religiously, and very respectful of what I believed, which was, more than I deserved, I feel like. But the whole time we dated, I felt like the ground beneath my feet just never stopped moving. Like I never felt really firm in who I was and what I stood for or who I was going to become. I just felt very lost. And it was a hard time, and it was hard explaining that to my girlfriend at the time, and it was hard explaining that to my parents, because they were not happy about my coming out, which didn't surprise me. I knew before I told them what the reaction was going to be. And I love my parents. I adore my parents. I think they're fabulous, wonderful people. And I knew that when I came out to them, I knew that I wasn't going to be disowned or hated or, kicked out of the family. I knew that they would never, ever do something like that. But I did know, and I was aware of how they felt about homosexuality, and I had heard what they had said about homosexuality, throughout my life growing up. I remember Proposition 8 when that was a thing in California, and there was a big push in the church to try and stop Prop 8. I don't remember if Prop 8 I don't remember if we were trying to stop it or advance it. I don't remember, but it was a big topic of conversation at the time. And I remember, the things that my parents said about gay people and gay couples. And it's not that they were unkind, but it was very obvious that they were not supportive of gay couples being married, So I knew before I came out to them what the feeling was going to be. And that was hard. That was probably one of the scariest parts. I cried. I remember crying when I came out. It was just to my mom and my little sister. I wouldn't even say that I was crying because I was sad. I was crying because I was scared and also crying because I felt relieved, because I didn't have to keep this secret anymore about who I was and what I was doing. At the time, I was living with my then girlfriend, and my parents, she was my roommate. She was just my coworker and my really good friend and my roommate. We lived together about 3 months before I told my parents that she's actually my girlfriend. I think that's how I actually said it when I came out. I said, hey, just so you know, so-and-so isn't just my roommate. She's my girlfriend. This is a person that I'm dating. And then I just cried. They both hugged me. My little sister hugged me. My mom hugged me, said they loved me. It was a really good, I don't want to say positive experience, because it was surrounded by confusion and this cloud of uncertainty that was really scary for me. I've always been a person that's known what it is I'm going to do in life and the direction that I'm heading. And I've always had a plan. And to have this experience where the plan that I had always had for myself of marrying a man and having kids and just continuing this life of going to church and just happy family and all these things, all of a sudden that was gone. And that was a really hard thing to acknowledge. And it took me a long time to accept that and understand that wasn't going to be the future anymore. And so it just threw me into this time of uncertainty. In fact, it's an interesting thing is I was going back through, I'm usually really good at journaling. I've always been pretty good at keeping track of what's going on in my life. And it's interesting to me that during this process of coming out and feeling these feelings that I didn't understand and questioning where those feelings were coming from and why was I feeling this way, and if God didn't intend for people to be gay, then why was me, of all people? I did the church thing and I served a mission and I did everything that I could do. It was, textbook, this is what you do, and then, you just keep going and God blesses you with all of these things that you want, right? That's where I was. I had done all of the things. And then it was me that was then experiencing these feelings of attraction towards a woman. And I was like, this is not in my brain. I was like, this is not right. This isn't okay. That's what I had been told for so long. It's not okay, to be gay. And I knew people who were gay. There were a couple of girls in my high school that I knew were gay, and they weren't secretive about it, but also it was just something that wasn't talked about. It was very hush hush. Nobody wanted to say anything about it because, again, predominantly a religious area, and homosexuality was frowned upon. And so to then realize that I was the thing that was frowned upon, that threw me through a loop. I mean, it was so long before I finally accepted that part of myself. And that'll be for another episode, how I got to that point. But I just wanted, before we keep going, and hopefully you keep listening to some of these podcasts, I just wanted you to understand where I'm coming from, a little bit more of who I am, what my background is, my experience. I do not claim to know everything, especially about the LGBTQ community, okay? I'm very new, very uninformed about a lot of what goes on within the LGBTQ community. What I do know is that I don't want people to feel the way that I felt. I don't want people to feel like there is this uncertainty or this negative, resentful, shameful feeling around who they are, because that's how I felt. And that's that when I was talking about my journals earlier, I stopped journaling. I stopped doing something that I had done consistently for years. I stopped doing it because the part of me that couldn't accept my sexuality was so ashamed of me, of that part of me, that I didn't want a record of it. I didn't want to write it down. I didn't want anybody at any point in the future to go back and know that I had these feelings and that I was this, homosexual, gay, whatever. I didn't want people to know that. I didn't want there to be evidence that I was that person. I was that thing that people said was wrong and evil and shameful. And so I didn't write about it. And I regret that so much because now I can't go back, and everything, all of the stories that I share, it's all based on my memory, just which mind you is not particularly good, but I don't have a record of any of it. That whole year and a half, almost 2 years of my life where I was trying to battle through this, don't be gay, don't be gay, don't be gay, don't be gay, you can't be gay. I just didn't write about it. And now I just try to remember, I remember a lot of the emotions, the grief and the sadness and the shame and the resentment and the anger. There were times where I was so mad at everyone, mad at myself, mad at God, mad at my family, because of the situation that I was in. And I was so blinded, I think, by all of the negative emotions that I was unable to see the people who wanted to be there for me. There were people who would have wanted to help me, but I couldn't tell them. I couldn't bring myself to tell them. I couldn't bring myself to tell them what I was dealing with because, again, shame. I didn't want them to think that I was weird or that I was the sinful person. And so I didn't tell anybody, even though I knew that there were people that would have been there to listen. And I think that's one of my biggest regrets, was not letting people in sooner. I wouldn't have had to go through all of that alone if I would have just opened up a little bit more. But that's a scary thing. And if that's something that you're dealing with right now, if you feel like you can't tell anybody, you're closeted and there's nobody that you can talk to, there are people that you can reach out to that will listen. And I know it's hard to find them, especially when you're feeling so I don't want to say negatively about yourself, but negatively about your situation and what you're going through, and introspective, but in a way that is critical to who you are. That was me. I was looking at myself and going, this is ridiculous. Why are you feeling this way? Stop feeling like that. Stop thinking these things. And because I was so focused on telling myself to not be gay, I wasn't able to see the people who would have been willing to listen to me and to help. But moving forward, I'm going to talk with you guys about a lot of things that I wish I would have done differently. Things that I feel like would have made my coming out experience a little bit more doable and less of making me feel like I have to run away and hide, because that's how I felt for a long time. And maybe we'll talk about that in the next episode. But I do hope you're willing to stick around. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you know a little bit more about my experience. And moving forward, I hope that this can be a podcast that you can maybe learn from my mistakes. I don't know that I'm going to teach you anything particularly important. But I hope that maybe by me sharing my experience, you can make decisions that will make your coming out or your journey with your sexuality, maybe it'll make it a little bit more bearable for you. I'm not going to say it's going to make it easier, because I don't think that's the case, but even if it's just a little bit more bearable, than it was previously, then hopefully these podcast episodes will be worth it. So thank you for listening, for tuning in. The next episode, we'll talk a little bit more about me coming to terms with my sexuality and what that looked like, coming out to myself. That took a long time. It took a long time for me and a lot of conversations with therapists. So I really, really want to thank my Patreon subscribers. You guys are the ones that really have made this possible. The podcasts, it feels so nice to have that kind of support. So if you're interested in supporting me, helping me out with the podcast stuff, check out the Patreon. You can subscribe. It's $5 a month. But a little bit goes a long way in terms of in helping me be able to do these podcasts, create these episodes, continue creating content for you guys. So check out the TikTok, the Instagram. Thank you to the Patreon subscribers. I'm looking forward to sharing more experiences with you guys. Very much looking forward to it. And I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous day, fabulous week. And I'll see you maybe. I'm not going to see you though, because it's a podcast, but I am looking forward to sharing more stories with you. So tune into the next episode. Thank you.